Okay, so welcome everyone to the Power of Intuitive Eating workshop. I know Meg and Paisley, both of you guys that are here right now live, obviously know me, but I think there's a few people signed up that are going to be watching this on the replay link that aren't that familiar with me. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction. So obviously you guys know my name is Katie. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. I'm also an intuitive practitioner, and I'm the founder of Nourish Life Healing, which is my practice where I combine holistic nutrition counseling with intuitive practices. So basically what that means is energy healing, emotional healing, working on things like meditation. Sometimes I bring in meditation, breath work, all those type of things into the practices so that we can kind of get that full body, mind, body, soul approach going. And if you guys see me looking to the side, it's just because I wrote some notes so that I would kind of stay on track with you and not get too off topic. Okay, so, and for me, really, you know, my passions are mostly intuitive eating. I love teaching people and walking people through the process of beginning their intuitive eating journey. And then I love connecting people through how your emotions and your energy body is all connected to the physical symptoms that you're having. And so how important it is to do the emotional and energetic healing while you're also working on your nutrition and altering your diet, because the two go hand in hand. And that's something we're going to talk about in this workshop. So that'll be exciting. Okay. So, in the chat box, I know there's only 2 of you joined right now, but just if you guys feel comfortable, I would like to set an intention for this workshop. That's something we're going to talk about later as well, but I would like you guys to tell me, if you feel comfortable, what your intention is. Just basically, what do you hope to get out of this? And I will tell you guys mine in the meantime, which is, my intention is to hold the space for you guys who are here live, as well as the ones who are going to be joining us on the replay link, to learn this information, to share this information with each other, and to bring forward information that's hopefully going to help you guys along your journey and where you're at right now. So that's my intention. And if you guys feel comfortable, write kind of like what you're hoping to get out of this. Okay, Meg says, learn more about what intuitive eating is. Paisley says, I love nutrition and mindfulness, so I'm interested in learning more about the connection. Oh, that's great. I love that. Okay, well, we're definitely going to learn more about that. We'll talk all about that too. Okay, cool. And just a big thank you to the ones who are joining us live, and then also everyone on the replay link, just because signing up for something like this, dedicating your time, dedicating your money, that's already a step in the right direction. You're already in that moment telling yourself that you are ready to maybe make a change, or at least you're open to learning new information, which is the first part of any type of change in your life. So thank you guys for doing that for yourselves and for being here with me. I'm really excited to kind of take you on this journey with me. Okay, so, oh, and another thing, if you guys feel comfortable in the chat box, I was going to ask you is, where are you guys currently at with intuitive eating? Do you know a little bit about it? Maybe you don't know nothing at all. Maybe you're already doing it. If you wouldn't mind just telling me, just so I can kind of know as we go along, is this totally new to you, or are you kind of familiar already? Okay, Meg, you know a little bit about it, trying to learn more. Good. Okay. Good. Okay, Paisley, up until tonight, I just tell myself to listen to my body, so hoping to learn more. I love that. Okay, great. Good answers so far. That's some good stuff to go off of. Okay. So I am going to share my screen because I have a little presentation to share with you guys. It's nothing, I didn't, poor Paisley's already pretty familiar with teaching, but I didn't want it to feel like we're in school in a classroom, but I did want to have a few slides just to kind of guide us through and to also make it so we're kind of on track and I don't, you know, run out of time. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to, let's see, present. isn't. Okay. So you guys can all see my slides here, I'm hoping. I think so. Okay, perfect. Thumbs up. Great. Okay. So again, I have my notes over here. I'm going to be reading off of. All right. So as you guys know, we're at the Power of Intuitive Eating workshop. We're going to be talking all about exactly that, how powerful intuitive eating is, what intuitive eating is, how intuitive eating can be used for physical, emotional, and energetic healing, and how it helps connect you to your higher self. And if you're hearing me say that and you're like, what is a higher self? Don't worry, because we're going to talk about it. And then we're going to have some time for some question and answer at the end as well. Okay, so this first slide, we're going to talk about just an overview of what is intuitive eating. So intuitive eating is the practice of tapping into your intuition to guide your nourishment decisions. That's my definition of it. I think some people maybe define it in a few different ways. There's different practitioners and ways that people kind of teach intuitive eating. But for me, that is how I define it and how I work with people on it. But what does that mean, right? Like, how does that work in your typical daily life? So this is actually where it differs from just a mindfulness practice, because even the word mindfulness has the word mind in it. So it means it's something that you're generating in your mind, you're thinking about it, you've maybe picked it from some outside sources, you've read about it, maybe you've seen a presentation on it, and so that's how you're making your decision. Whereas intuitive practices and intuitive eating really come from that innate inner wisdom and from your intuition. So with, sometimes typical intuitive eating practitioners will kind of stop at just that mindfulness. And I think that it's because that's what most people are comfortable with. Sometimes when people hear things about intuition or intuitive practices, they think it's maybe a little out there. They don't really know if they believe in it or if it's real, all that type of stuff. But the truth is, our bodies do have this innate inner wisdom, and they know more than our thinking brain and our mind knows. The body usually knows what's going on way before the mind does. So it's all about kind of trusting that innate inner wisdom and having that belief that your body is always going to guide you in the right direction, and that your mind can kind of release that control and allow the intuition to kind of take the driver's seat. Okay, so before we kind of go any further and talk more about intuitive eating, who here, I don't actually know if I can see the chat while I'm in this presenter mode, but I was going to ask you guys who here already has an intuitive practice. So even if you're watching this on the replay link, just kind of think to yourself, do you already have some type of intuitive practice? This could be like meditation. This could be like breath work, some type of mindful movement, something where you're getting out of your mind, stopping the thoughts, stopping the thinking brain, and totally tapped in and tuned into your body. I'm trying to see if I can find the chat. Let's see. Chat, there we go. Okay. Love it. Yoga. Yep, that's perfect. And I don't currently have a set practice, trying to get better about meditation. Okay, good. So I definitely recommend meditation. I think yoga is kind of a form of meditation, and some yoga classes even have like a meditative part to it. Like sometimes 10 minutes of meditation are included during those. So I think that's great. And it definitely does get you out of your brain and into the body. Yeah, I definitely recommend meditation. And the reason is because the first step to intuitive eating is tapping into your intuition. So you can't do intuitive eating if you're not in tune with your intuition. And many of us haven't been taught how to do that. And it seems kind of silly because, okay, if it's this innate inner wisdom, shouldn't it just be natural? But along the way and throughout our lives, we've been like kind of programmed and taught to follow all of these outside forces. So we're told, oh, you should eat this. These are the right portion sizes. This is the type of food you should be eating, all these different things. And so we're kind of flooded with all of this information, and that ends up being what we lean on to make our decisions. So we're going by, okay, I'm supposed to have breakfast at this time, or I'm supposed to be having this much food for lunch, or I'm only supposed to be eating this many calories, that type of thing. And so we've gotten so used to relying on these outside forces that we're actually not tuned into the body. So building an intuitive practice and a connection with your intuition is going to be key. And at first, it can seem a little bit strange. You might feel a little weird, like something you're not used to. I mean, it's really like anything new that you try in your life, it's going to take some practice, and you're always going to go through that maybe phase of transition. Just it might be a little uncomfortable. You might not feel like you're like good at it, and it's going to take some time. So just build up to it. I recommend meditation for at least 10 minutes a day to get started. If you already have an intuitive practice, try to expand on it. Maybe if you're already meditating, or if you're already doing yoga, if you're already journaling every day, or doing something to really get in touch with yourself, maybe try adding another element or increasing a little bit, or at least bringing an awareness and intention to that practice. So what I mean by that is, if you currently have a practice, now set the intention before you bring that practice that you want to get in touch with your intuition, and that you want to begin using your intuition to guide your eating decisions. So even just holding that intention brings that energy forward, and it's going to direct your focus in that direction. So once you kind of say it to yourself, that's what you want, things are already in motion. So, you don't really have to do anything else just yet. All right. So, and if you are interested in learning more about like the step-by-steps of how to build an intuitive eating practice, I do have an intuitive eating basics guide for free, and that is in my Instagram bio as well. So if you don't already have that, you can sign up there. It's free. And it will walk you through the steps, because we're not going to go through each and every step in this particular workshop. We are going to kind of dive a little bit deeper past that. We'll touch on the steps a little bit, but we're going to get into the good stuff in this workshop. Okay. So another part of building your intuitive practice is learning how your intuition communicates with you. So each of us have an intuitive connection. It's not like one person's intuitive and the rest aren't, all those type of things. We all have an intuition. We all have this innate inner wisdom. We just have to figure out how it talks to us and how to tap in with it. So some people are able to get a gut feeling. Some people just know. All of a sudden, it's like they're not hearing a voice in their head or anything like that. They know what they're supposed to do. Some people do kind of receive messages. Some people see it visually in their head. So those are different ways. And when you start to build an intuitive connection, even aside from the eating, even your intuitive practice starts just in your meditation daily. You will start to learn how your intuition communicates with you. So for an example, just in case you're kind of lost right here, I'll give you something that happens for me. So a lot of times I will get a really strong, like, knowing out of nowhere. It not necessarily comes, it doesn't necessarily come in like a word or a form, but like, especially when it comes in regards to eating, I won't have even been thinking about food or thinking about my meal, and I'll all of a sudden get like, oh, I need to have a banana today. And it's, this is also where it differs from like a craving too, because it's not like I've been thinking about it all day or like really wanting it. It'll just come to me and I'm like, okay, well, that's what I need to have. Or I'll be in the kitchen and I'll kind of be looking around and all of a sudden it'll hit me like, that's what I want. Other times I get like visual images, and I'll see something in my head and I'll be like, okay, I need to go to the grocery store and get that, because I keep visualizing like a cucumber or a pepper or something like that. And if you haven't built up an intuitive eating practice yet, this again might sound strange or weird, or like she's getting images of a cucumber in her head. But as you build up your intuition and you have that strong connection with yourself, it's going to start communicating with you. And the more that you listen to it and follow through with it, the stronger it gets and the more that it will guide you. So that's why building up that intuitive connection is really important. Because if you don't know how it communicates with you, then you're not going to know if you're getting messages or not. Okay, so okay, so in the chat, if either one of you kind of wants to write in, you know, we're going to do a Q&A at the end, but I did want to make this a little bit interactive as we're going through. So do you guys have any questions about anything that we just said? Did that make sense to you? And, you know, any comments that you have about getting in touch with your intuition? Or do either one of you already know how your intuition communicates with you? Have you gotten intuitive messages before and you're like, okay, I know that for me, I'm visual, or I know for me, I have a strong gut feeling, things like that. You can write it in the chat. So I don't know where the chat went. So let's see. I think there we are. Okay. Still learning, been wanting to eat more bananas. Well, probably if you've been wanting to, then that could be your intuition and your body talking to you. Okay, Paisley, I think there's also a retroactive part too, when reflecting on what eating good food feels like versus not good food. Yes. Okay, and Meg says she thinks her body's talking to her. So Paisley, yeah, I think that's a great point too. Sometimes you're actually hitting on my next point, which is in the process of getting in touch with your intuition and getting in touch with your body, you go through this kind of trial and error period. And I'm going to get to your question in a second, Paisley. You go through this trial and error period where, like anything else that you're brand new at, it kind of takes that practice and that extra time. So in the beginning, you're just building a foundation. You're building that foundation connection with your intuition. You're kind of building your baseline. And like I said, finding out how it communicates with you. And then it's going to take in the beginning a lot more frequent check-ins. It's going to take a lot of rewiring of your thoughts, which we're going to get into later as well. Changing of some of your belief systems. And it's really a process. And like you mentioned about, like, sometimes you have to try the foods to know if they feel good. Exactly. In the beginning, because you're kind of just starting out and maybe you aren't super in touch with your intuition just yet, or at least you're not aware that it's your intuition, because like I said, all of us have an intuitive connection. Sometimes we just don't realize, oh, hey, that's an intuitive message. That's my body talking to me. So it does take that trial and error. So sometimes, like, you might be feeling a certain food, you try it, and then you wait and see, how does that feel in my body? Do I feel good? Do I feel energized? Because it's not even just about like the digestive symptoms or the physical symptoms in your body. It's also like, how do you feel emotionally, energetically? How did that react with you? And so it does take that trial and error at first. And I'm going to go into this at the very end. I have some more tips for kind of like how to monitor and keep track of what works for you and maybe what doesn't. But exactly, it does take that period of just maybe one day you think you're wanting something, you try it and it doesn't feel good. And then you realize to yourself, okay, let me reflect. Why do I think I was wanting that? Was that really an intuitive eating message, or was that a craving? So that actually brings me to your question, Paisley. And Megan as well, who mentioned, I think my body is talking to me and wanting me to eat less sugar and less sweets. And then Paisley says, what if my body craves chocolate? So this is great. I'm glad you brought this up, because I think other people who are going to be watching this workshop are going to have the same question. So a craving is different than an intuitive eating message. And the reason that people get cravings, and now I'm not saying this to like accuse anybody, or like, I hope you don't take any offense to this, because we all have this and it's not just one person or the other, but usually cravings are certain types of foods that are high in things like fat, salt, sugar, really high in protein, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Those foods aren't bad for us, but they take more energy for your body to digest. Actually, physically, more blood flow has to go to your digestive system in order to digest foods that are higher in fat, salt, sugar, and protein. And it's also harder on your liver to process those foods as well. So when we are eating foods that we're craving, like chocolate or foods that we know are not as nutrient dense and as healthful for our bodies, then it is your body's way of self-soothing or coping with an unpleasant emotion. So usually if you're craving chocolate, like I'll say for me, I used to crave chocolate every single day after lunch, every day, and I couldn't go without it. And for me, I didn't think anything of it. I thought, well, I just like it. I just like chocolate. Like there's nothing wrong with that, which is true. You can just like things, but it was to the point that like if I didn't have it one day, I would be like, okay, I need my chocolate. Where is it? Like I couldn't wait to get home from work to get the piece. I really wanted it and it felt out of control. So that's a sign of a craving versus an intuitive eating message, because it comes with that sense of that lack of control. And it also is usually related to an emotion. So you might have an emotion preceding it, you might notice an emotion after it. And usually these emotions are in our subconscious. We're not thinking to ourselves, oh, I'm really stressed and so I need this chocolate. But really for me, again, I'm using myself as an example. I'd be at work and I didn't like my job, and chocolate was a fun thing in my day. I could always look forward to this piece of chocolate. And so it was soothing an emotion that I was having. So when I reflected on it after realizing like, hey, why am I eating this chocolate every day? I realized when I didn't have that chocolate, I felt like my day was worse. I felt like the afternoon was just like bland. And it's because I was using that chocolate as a piece of excitement in my day. So, cravings aren't necessarily bad to give into. I think the most important part is that we're honest with ourselves about why we're having them. One of the best things we can do with ourselves is just not lie to ourselves. Don't kid ourselves. Don't try to say that, we're eating this because chocolate has antioxidants and it's healthy and all this stuff. We're eating it because we want some fun in our day. We don't feel good. And we understand that this food is going to like push away some emotions or negative thoughts that we're going to have. And so that's just my example, but I know, for example, some other people, they get home from work and the first thing they do is run to the cupboard and get a bag of chips. It's not just about work, because obviously some people love their jobs, so some people don't have that issue. But after a fight with a friend, you go out for ice cream, or, you break up with your significant other and you're having pizza nights. There's a reason that we do that. There's a reason we turn to those foods. And the more that we do it, the more that our body craves it. And so you wanting those foods is not an intuitive eating message, but the craving itself is a message to yourself. So if that makes sense, I know it's a little bit confusing, but when you're having cravings, that is your body's way of like setting off an alarm bell, like, hey, pay attention. Like you want this food every day. There's a reason for it. Look at it, pay attention to it, realize that when you eat this food, you feel better temporarily. So figure out what's going on. And, this isn't to shame anyone, but I view cravings actually more as food addictions, because they are these foods that we are using to cover up what's actually trying to talk to us. And I see you, Paisley, saying cheese is 100% tied to my emotions. Yes, because cheese is hard to digest on the body, actually. So again, your blood flows diverted to the digestive system, and bam, like your brain is actually receiving less blood flow while you're digesting heavier foods. And so you actually physically don't have to think about anything else. So I hope that clears it up. And my tip for that would be, if you think that you're having a craving, don't, stress yourself, don't shame yourself about it. Just the first step is to become aware of it. Start to notice it, observe it. If it helps you to have a journal where you can write this stuff down, do that. And then set the intention. Like I said before, I'm big on intention. Set the intention. Maybe you want to understand the root cause. What's causing this? If you don't already know, sometimes you might be like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this when I'm stressed or when I'm sad. But if you don't know, set the intention and just kind of sit with it. See what comes up. Maybe bring it into your meditation practice or your yoga practice and think about it while you're there. See what comes up. And then slowly over time, I would say one day, go without it. Have one day without your chocolate or one day without your cheese, whatever it is, and see how you feel. what emotions are coming up. Maybe you're lonely. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you're sad. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe you're mad at your boyfriend or your girlfriend, whatever it is. And so that will show you what's going on underneath. Maybe you're feeling empty, like how I was when I didn't have my chocolate. I was like, this day sucks. And now I'm bored. I had nothing fun in this day. I was using my food as a means to feel better, and now I don't. And so I was realizing I really hate this job. So for me, it was a matter of changing my job, but I was able to learn that by realizing why I wanted the chocolate every day. Okay. Well, I'm so glad we touched on that because I think that's going to be really helpful for everyone else as well. So I'm going to move on to the next slide here. Okay. I have to minimize this. Okay. Okay, so this next one focuses on intuitive eating for physical, emotional, and energetic healing. So this is a major theme for this workshop. I know when I advertise this workshop, this is a lot of what I talked about. So what does this even mean? You know, what is emotional, energetic healing? We're going to get into that. And intuitive eating really does encompass all three. So I'm just going to tackle the physical part of it first, because I think that's easiest. I'm going to have a sip of water first. Okay, easiest to talk about is the physical. So when you're allowing your intuition to guide your eating decisions, chances are your diet is going to change from the current state that it's in. That's because I'm sure in one way or another, there's some factor, outside factor, that's influencing how you eat. And I know there's probably going to be people thinking, well, I don't follow a diet, or I don't really think I'm part of diet culture. That's okay. I didn't think I was either. I didn't think I was following any type of diet. But the problem was even just little things throughout the day, like, well, for me, again, it played into my work schedule. Well, I had to wake up at this time and be at work by this time. So I just had to grab what was quick, what was easy. And I couldn't really think about what my body wanted. So there was number one. My food decision was based on an external factor. Then every day I was starving by like 11:30 because I had to wake up so early. But my lunch break didn't start until 1 because I usually would have meetings, and that was when I was able to sit down at my desk and have lunch. So again, number two, my eating decision was based on an external factor. Then I'm hungry again, but I have an hour drive home. And so by the time I get home, I'm not really thinking about what my body wants. I'm just running to the cupboard and grabbing whatever is easiest because I'm so hungry. So number three, I'm not paying attention to my body signals. So I'm not saying and usually then for dinner later, I would get to have what I really wanted. But if you guys can kind of think about how that applies to your schedule in your day, is there a time in your day where you're eating or making a food decision based on something else? And sometimes, our schedules are busy and there's really no way around it, but that shouldn't be the majority. And for me, it was really upsetting, especially as a dietitian, because I couldn't practice these things that I was preaching. So that's why when you begin intuitive eating, there's a big chance that your current eating decisions are going to change, at least in some way, even if you don't think you're following a diet, because at some point of your day, you're probably choosing to eat a certain way. I see your question. What did you write? Yes, I always try to eat dinner between 5 to 7, even if I'm not hungry, because it's bad to eat post bedtime. Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you shared this, Paisley. Thank you for writing that. That is a perfect example of someone who's not on a diet. They're not really doing all their diet culture behaviors, but that right there, where did that come from? That's not from your body. That's not from your intuition. That was an outside factor that said, don't eat past 7 p.m. Why? Does that fit your body's needs? Does that meet your nourishment needs? It's one thing if your body's genuinely hungry at 6:30, great, have a meal at 6:30. But what if it was 7:30? What if it was 30 minutes past 7 and your body was like, I'm hungry? Can you not have it? So I think that's a really perfect example, and I'm glad you said that. So that is a perfect example of when you start intuitive eating, things are going to start to change. And so tying this back into physical healing, your inner wisdom is going to guide you to make food choices and make eating patterns and styles of eating that maybe you previously judged, or maybe you previously thought were wrong, or maybe you previously thought you wouldn't like, specifically because our body knows what we need, like I said, more than our mind did. So Paisley's example is perfect. Her mind is telling her to eat from 5 to 7 for dinner. Her body's not, though. So maybe and I'm, not in a necessarily in a bad way, but maybe previously you thought, well, eating after 7's bad, or, I shouldn't be eating after 7. So when you begin intuitive eating, you might notice that your body is actually telling you, well, I'm not hungry yet. I'm not hungry yet. And now it's 8:30. And it might force you to break out of that comfort zone because your physical body needs that for maybe a reason that your mind can't understand. So I'm going to give a personal example just to kind of tie this back to something practical. When I first really committed to intuitive eating, I was probably where you're at, Paisley, before I started, because it sounds, and Megan too, it sounds like where Megan's at right now is pretty similar. I was in the process of thinking I was intuitive eating to a certain extent. I was being mindful. I was, making decisions like that, not eating after 7, or like I said, eating around the schedule of my job. But I wasn't really intuitive eating. I was in the mindfulness stage, which is part of the journey. Okay. So like there's these different stages, maybe you're way over here, and now all of a sudden you're kind of being more mindful, and now you're moving into the intuitive eating stage. So when I really committed to following my intuition, for me, it was when I was having all these unwanted symptoms out of nowhere. I was physically not feeling my best. I was having all crazy symptoms I will probably go into more later on, but I was like, okay, I'm done. I was like, I'm going to start meditating every day. I'm going to connect with my body, and I'm just going to see what it wants. And that's what I did. And so the first thing that started to happen, and actually my sister Megan, who's here, can attest to this, is I started having a lot of trouble with dairy products. And like Paisley, I loved cheese. That was like my comfort snack when I would get home from work. I wanted to have cheese and crackers. And so I was unable to tolerate it anymore, though. My body physically was giving me a lot of symptoms. I won't go into all of them to spare you guys the details. Poor Megan knows because she was there for some of them. But all of a sudden, my body was just like, nope, no more dairy. None. Not even like in products that people cooked, like in like baked goods and things. No. And so I was being led to cut out dairy, which again was something for me that I had, oh, I don't need to be dairy free, but my body was telling me I did. The next thing was eggs, which I would used to have for breakfast every single morning. I would bring them as my breakfast. I would have them at work, and that was like my thing. I loved them. And eventually at one point, I started feeling sick when I was eating eggs, and at work I would have like unsettled stomach. And I really, really tried to push against my intuition with this one because I loved eggs. But this was an example of the mind fighting against the body, because my mind was like, oh no, I love them though, and they taste good, and like I want them, and I've always liked eggs, that type of resistance to change. But when I started switching it up and bringing, like oatmeal and fruit or smoothies, the symptoms completely went away. And it was the same type of thing, even in baked goods like cookies or things like that that had eggs in them, I would start to feel sick afterwards. And this is not to say that eggs are bad for everyone or that dairy's bad for everyone. Nothing's like bad or good. This was just my body. And it was shocking to me because I had always loved eggs. I had loved cheese. I had never had an issue, but my physical body knew more than my mind and was giving me messages that I had previously been ignoring. And finally, they made it so uncomfortable in my physical body that I had to make the change. So you guys can write in the chat, does that kind of clear up how your intuition can guide you to have physical healing? Because what I haven't mentioned yet is after I removed these foods from my diet, all of the symptoms that I had, well, not all yet, because then there were other things that I was guided to do later, but for those specific two, oh my gosh, huge improvement right away. I was bloating was like gone, digestive symptoms gone, any issues that I had been having in the morning at work, like my stomach issues after I would eat the eggs, completely gone. And I started to feel a lot lighter and a lot more comfortable in my body as well, because when I was having these physical symptoms of like the bloating and the digestive issues and the discomfort, I really didn't feel like myself. I was not very confident because I just didn't feel like my physical body was reflecting who I really was, which is exactly what was happening. So changing the food helped a lot. And if you guys want, I can go more into like the physical symptoms I was having. I feel like I'll probably do more videos about that and post that later. But there were other examples as well. One kind of funny example is this one happened more recently when every day for a snack, I usually love to have a rice cake with avocado mashed on top of it and like some lemon and salt and pepper. And there was a couple weeks ago where I was all of a sudden craving a banana instead, and I was craving like a lot of bananas. I say the word craving, but what I really mean was my intuition was kicking in and telling me to have bananas. And so was I was almost going to fall back into old behaviors and say, but I want an avocado. I eat an avocado every day. I like it. But I stopped myself and I said, no, this is your intuition. Go for it. And so I was eating the bananas and I was trying to figure out like, why is this? I all of a sudden made the connection that bananas are high in potassium, which are good for cramping. And I was experiencing a lot of leg cramps for the past 2 days before this. So I ate like 3 bananas that day because that's what I felt called to do. I ate like 2 more the next day and the cramps were completely gone. So in that example, I did know why I was wanting those foods, but I usually don't. And I usually don't try to question it or ask too much because now I do really trust it. But those are just examples of how your body knows what you need, and it knows enough to tell you like which foods have certain vitamins and minerals. So somehow my body was smart enough to know a banana has potassium and that's what you need, because that was my intuition guiding me. Okay, any questions about that? Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the emotional healing aspect. And if you're watching this on the replay, I apologize for any of these pauses. I'm also just viewing the chat and kind of looking at what people are writing in. Okay. Yes, exactly. I think I'm trying to figure out, I think pike is the one where they eat the dirt, right?
Yes, or ice or anything with no nutritional value. But a lot of times, like for example, pregnant women, sometimes they might crave something like dirt.
Yes, because of the nutrients, because of the minerals, right?
Yeah. So if they get their blood tested and those levels and whatnot, then they find they're actually missing something.
Yes. Okay. I love that you shared that, Paisley, because it is a perfect example. Why would somebody be craving dirt? We don't eat it normally as part of a diet, but when you're deficient in a mineral, your body has this innate inner wisdom to know. How does it know that? Your mind isn't the one telling it, it's your intuition. So that is perfect. If you're somebody who's skeptical or you need proof for something, take Paisley's example as proof, because you would never know that otherwise. So I think that's a great indication that your body is really working with you. Okay, so I'm going to go into the emotional healing aspect now. So we've kind of touched on how intuitive eating really can help you heal from physical symptoms, but as well, it can help with emotional symptoms. And when I talk about emotional healing, I'm actually kind of grouping emotional and energetic together, because the word emotion just means energy in motion. So when you're having an emotion, that means that energy is expressing itself. So you can kind of picture to yourself, when you're happy, you're like dancing around, you're jumping up and down. When you're sad, you're kind of just like curled into a ball. When you're surprised or nervous, you're moving around a lot. And so energy is moving through you when you're experiencing those feelings. When energy is not in motion, it's no longer an emotion, and it's just energy that's stagnant. So when I'm talking about emotional healing, what I'm really talking about is emotion that wasn't expressed. So energy that is stagnant or stuck because it was not expressed, and that's why it needs healing. Okay, and if that didn't make sense to you, you can write that in the chat and I will clarify. But I'm going to keep going as to how intuitive eating can help with this. So in our span of our lives, there are different stressors, traumas, events in the past, even daily triggers that we may even be unaware of. You know, something might have happened to you when you were little that doesn't even really seem like a big deal, but to a 5 or 6 year old, it was traumatizing or stressful, and you never really expressed it or talked about it or felt it. And so that does get stored in the body. And I don't mean physically you can pick it up and see the emotion and it's like put in your stomach somewhere. What I mean is that when we have these stressors, the body produces the hormone cortisol, which is basically like the fight or flight hormone. Some of you may already know this, but it is also what stores fat. It can also change how your cells respond to the environment. So imagine like you're in fight or flight mode, you see a bear, you're running from it, your cells, every cell in your body is responding to that stressor and moving because of that stressor. So when we have these past events in our past or these daily triggers, those add up over time and they change the way that our cells interact in the physical body. So yes, they're causing those physical symptoms. Like I was talking about, your body with intuitive eating is going to be led to ask for different foods, but you also have to work with the emotions underneath as well. So when we look at nutrition and diet, we actually can't really look at it by itself. You have to involve this energetic and emotional component. Otherwise, you won't be getting to the root cause. You'll be putting a band-aid on the surface by doing a specific diet, and you won't really be healing what's underneath. And so with, doing the emotional and energetic healing, you're healing the emotions on 2 levels. You're providing the appropriate nutrients to the cells to help them heal and repair. Like I said, like with the example of eating the bananas for the cramps, those bananas were helping my cells heal and repair. But in addition, you're connecting with your intuition, which helps heal those trapped emotion. I'm calling them emotions, but really it's the trapped energy that was never expressed. So it never got to become a full emotion. And so how that works is as you're building up your intuitive connection, you are starting to get more in touch with yourself. And I'm going to use the example of eating the chocolate because that seems like a good one. Like we said, you're starting to realize that, something's off with this chocolate. I don't think it's an intuitive eating message. I think it's a craving. Okay. Now you're going to take that away and see what's underneath. Now you're aware that you have this emotional trigger or this emotional trauma, or maybe you're realizing, okay, whenever I don't eat this chocolate, I feel sad. Well, why do you feel sad? And then you're able to really connect with yourself and you can just start to get curious and set the intention, because now you've decided, I'm not going to have that chocolate anymore. I want to heal this in a different way. I want to release and express this emotion. And that's how you really get to the emotional and energetic healing, is when you start changing your diet, you start to realize where food was acting as a soothing agent, where food was a coping mechanism, where food was helping to conceal something that was underneath. Because as you're on your intuitive eating journey, your intuition is going to guide you to eat foods that are no longer going to hide or conceal or soothe. You're going to be eating foods that are very nutritious and are helping your body heal and repair and are very healthful, but you're likely not going to be guided to eat these foods that are very like dense and comforting, because your intuition wants you to strip down the layers and get to this pure version of yourself. I could definitely feel myself going on a rant there. So if you guys have questions about that, can put them in the chat. But I'm just very passionate about that part of it because I think it is very overlooked with nutrition. And I just have seen in clients and in myself that if you don't do both, it's temporary. It's not going to work because we didn't actually heal what was going on. I'm not interested in just doing the basics. I want to help people heal from the root cause. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're talking about this. So connecting with your intuition through this process will illuminate these old stressors and triggers. And the more you connect, the better you will get at observing these things and bringing awareness to them. Okay. And like I was saying, it's also going to bring awareness to those foods that you're using to self-soothe, to cope with emotions, and it's going to guide you to eliminate these and force you to deal with these emotions in another way. So if you're thinking about kind of starting this intuitive eating practice, I would really recommend having some tools in place for yourself: meditation, journaling, yoga, even just time outdoors. Maybe you like to dance, maybe, and I would recommend whatever you're replacing these foods with, have it be something that's not just another numbing agent. So for example, like replacing this food with instead saying, okay, I'm not going to have the chocolate, but instead I'm going to watch my favorite TV show. Well, again, you're checked out. If you're doing that, you're numbed, you don't have to pay attention. So I would recommend something like meditation or journaling where you are connecting with yourself, and that way you can actually finally fully express and release those emotions. Okay. If there are no more questions on that, I'm gonna probably head to the next slide. And like I said, that emotional healing and the energetic healing were paired together. The more you tap into and honor your intuitive guidance, the more you're honoring yourself, and the more your energy is going to come into alignment. Okay. And I like what you said, Paisley. It's like a cellular memory. Exactly. When we have these emotions and these energetic experiences, your cells change, they adapt to the environment. So we have to be kind of aware of that and start observing and kind of being proactive with it. And especially then if you realize you're having a trigger or something like that, then you have these other techniques in place. So again, like my example with the banana that day, when instead the day that I thought, well, I always have an avocado, I want it, I was able to stop and redirect myself and choose the banana. And I really firmly believe that's because I have such a strong meditation practice and intuitive practice that I was able to tap into that awareness and kind of override my mind. And it takes a while to get there. It takes a while to build up to that. And every day is not going to be successful like that. Sometimes you're still going to give in. And so it's important to just be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself, and kind of allow yourself to go through the process. All right. Next slide. This topic is eating or intuitive eating for alignment with our higher selves. And this is just a little quote that I wrote, which is, when we honor our body's signals through the simple act of intuitive eating, we come into alignment with our higher selves. So in the chat, you guys can tell me, are you familiar with the term higher self? And when I say the word higher self, what does that mean to you? I would love to hear your input on this.
Katie, can you say that question one more time?
Yes, sure. So are you familiar with the term higher self? And when I say that term, what comes to mind for you? What does that make you think of? Also, I'm sorry if this feels like I'm a teacher at school. I want to keep you guys interested.
No, I love it. I love it. Keep it up.
Okay, Paisley says it makes me think of yoga. Megan says I'm not sure, would love more info. Okay, so I like what you said, Paisley, about it makes me think of yoga, because they probably, whoever your teachers are, might mention this in your yoga classes, because it is a very in meditation practices and yoga, people will reference the higher self. So what I would define as your higher self is the version of you in your head that's perfect. And I say perfect in quotations because I get it, like nobody's perfect, but really, like, if you could just be this version of yourself that has everything you want, is everything you want, what would that be? They look perfect, they act perfect, they're so confident, they have whatever these traits that you really value, that would be your higher self. And the trick here is that we already have access to that version of ourselves. We all do. Because if you can think it, if you can imagine it, then it's possible for you to be that version of yourselves. And so let me know if that makes sense for the higher self. That's just when I reference that term, that's what I'm talking about, is this version of ourselves that is so aligned in our lives, really just gets it, like is totally the version of you that you want to be. And it's not like anyone else. Like it's like you're not wishing you're someone else. It's you. You are the person that you most want to be, just this version of yourself. So I'm going to talk about how intuitive eating helps you align with that version of yourself. So what I believe is that there are many different pathways or doorways that we can walk through in our lives that help us realign with our higher selves. Because I say realign because you've probably been in a phase in your life before where you're like, yeah, I'm doing it right now. I've got it going on. Everything's working out for me. You feel good. And so you've probably been in alignment before. And sometimes we just fall out of alignment and we need help reconnecting. And so intuitive eating is one of the ways to do that. So like I was saying, there's different pathways, different gateways that I believe that we are led to at certain points in our life, depending on what we are ready for. And I'll explain what I mean by that. But again, with the same intuitive guidance that you're using to make your eating decisions, this intuitive guidance is also going to be supporting you and leading you to these different pathways or doorways, like I'm calling them. And when I say ready for them, I mean, we might be going through different things in our life. And so our intuition is going to kind of ease us in, like, okay, you're ready for this, or now you're ready to learn more. So Paisley, I'm just going to use you as an example because you do yoga. So I would view yoga already as one gateway or doorway into reconnecting with your higher self. Because in yoga, you are reconnecting with your body, you are learning breath work techniques, you're learning meditation techniques. And so you're connecting with yourself in the way that I was talking about before, where you're kind of putting the mind to rest. You're putting that like ego brain to rest, and you're really connecting with the physical sensations of your body and the energetic sensations of your body. And you might even be going into like meditative states while you're doing yoga. So you're a great example because you've already done this. You've entered that doorway, and now you're here taking this workshop, which tells me that there's something in you that when you read the words intuitive eating or the power of intuitive eating about this workshop, something in your brain, or more likely something in your intuition, put a little flag up and said, you're ready for this. You're ready to learn more about connecting with yourself in this way, because this is what's going to help you come even more into alignment. Same thing for you, Meg. And for anyone who's watching this on the replay link, there's something that brought you here. There's some part of you that thought, okay, I'm ready. So this is just one pathway or doorway that's going to bring you back home to yourself. That's kind of another way of thinking about the higher self, is like coming home, finding that center in yourself and really aligning with it. Okay, so when you're doing intuitive eating or following an intuitive eating lifestyle, it helps you to remove the need for external sources, in this case, to make your eating decisions. But it's going to help you by seeping into all other aspects of your life. So like I was saying before, and kind of with Paisley's example of only eating dinner from 5 to 7, that was an external source that told her that she should only do that. Intuitive eating is going to help you remove those things. You are only going to be relying on yourself, on your intuition. That's a huge deal because we don't usually do that. We are looking for outside support and answers for many things in our lives, eating included. So when we start doing that in just this one aspect, it begins to seep into other aspects as well. So you're not seeking an external diet or protocol, but you're feeling into the protocol that's right for you. We can learn from others, we can watch others, we can take information. Like today, you're taking this information from me. But at the end of the day, what's most important is using your discernment to see what feels aligned for you, what feels aligned for your highest self. And this is kind of like a quick side note. If you are interested in like learning more about your higher self, I would recommend, you could even probably look it up on YouTube, but doing a higher self meditation, or you can just do it yourself, sit in your room, even just for 5-10 minutes, and start to visualize what is the perfect version of you. What would be like, what would it be like if you've got it going on? Like if you're feeling good, you're looking good, you're confident, all those things, and just allow yourself to feel that and really set the intention to embody your higher self. Okay, so Paisley's question: for external forces, do you have suggestions for people who are constrained by work schedules? Okay, she has a 20-minute, same time every day to eat lunch, whether she's hungry or not. No, that's fine. She said maybe this is for the Q&A, but we can answer this now. So I totally get this because this was me. So I'm guessing, well, you would have to clarify this a little bit more, but is that 20-minute time period the only time you can eat lunch? Are you allowed to eat at other times? Or, because I know, I'm guessing you have a 20-minute break at this time, but are you allowed to eat other times throughout the day, like while you're working? I don't know if you are. Okay, yes, only then. Okay, so unfortunately, that is the case then, if that's the only time that you're allowed to eat. What I would do to make this more in tune with your intuition and your higher self is make sure that what you are eating at that time is aligned for you. So if you have the ability to kind of give yourself options, maybe you can meal prep a couple things earlier in the week that you know that you usually like. And so you at least have that one bit of freedom in that. So, okay, I get it. You only have this 20 minutes, you can only eat then, but how can you be aligned in those 20 minutes? Even if you're not hungry, what is something you could do to make sure that you're still giving your body the nutrients that it needs? And you could even set that intention with yourself. And as you build this intuitive connection with yourself, start to communicate with your intuition. I know that it might sound crazy in the beginning. It might seem like you're talking to yourself, but sit with yourself, have a quiet like moment and ask yourself, what do I want in this moment? Or I set the intention to nourish myself in these 20 minutes, and come at it from a perspective of, can't change this external situation, but I can change my intention. I can change the way that I feel about it. And I can feel gratitude for this moment I do have, because when we can't change the external situation, you know, you want to keep your job, you like your job, then we can change how we internally react to it. So acknowledging that maybe this isn't the ideal time for your body, but you can even talk to your body, feel, let your body know, again, in your head, how grateful you are for it and how, you know, you want to nourish it, and see exactly like what it is you can give it at that time. And I don't know if you're able to have snacks throughout the day at all, but like if you aren't that hungry yet, maybe having something smaller at that time and then nibbling on some snacks later when you are ready. But I guess the general recommendation is for anybody watching this who has these external factors that are affecting them, come at it with the highest intention for yourself. Set the intention to nourish yourself, to be kind to your body, to give your body exactly what it needs, and then give yourself freedom in the ways that you can. So if you can meal prep a few different things, give yourself options. If you have that ability to eat a little bit now, eat more later, do that. Or if you have the ability to like change the time of your break, I'm sure for Paisley you don't, but maybe some people do, where you could. I'll give the example of when I was working. Like I said, I only could eat lunch from like 1 to 1:30, and that didn't work for me because I was starving at 11:30. So although it was like against when my specific lunch break was, I just started getting my lunchbox at 11:30 and eating. And I remember my boss saying to me, like, what do you know, you're eating now. But you know, it wasn't like a rule that I had to only eat at 1. It was just that was when my specified lunch break was. I could still eat at my desk, like snacks and stuff throughout the day. So I just started doing it, and it worked better for me. So that's, hopefully that answered your question a little bit. But yeah, hold the highest intention and give your body at least what you can. Okay. I'm sorry guys, I have to recheck my notes because I got on a tangent there. Okay, so I was talking about how intuitive eating is kind of like one of those pathways or doorways you can enter into to reconnect with your higher self. And I really feel like it's such a special pathway. Had to hydrate, that was intuitive. it's a special pathway because others like yoga, I believe meditation is another type of one, mindful movement, breath work, journaling. Some people really get into like crystals or, different things that like grounding practices, outdoor practices, anything that you feel really connects you back to yourself. I would say those are all different pathways. I think intuitive eating is a really special one because eating activates almost all of our senses besides hearing, and unless you can hear the food cooking or something, it really activates, the smell, the touch, the taste, all that, the visual, you're obviously seeing it, and it activates this sixth sense, as I like to call it, of your intuition. So you're activating all of your physical senses as well as this intuitive sense. You're really like your senses are on. You are really tapped in with yourself, and it's really helping you build that mind, body, soul connection. Okay. So just another tidbit about this is that when we honor our intuition and when we take action from that place, so not only are we listening to our intuition and honoring it, we're taking action on it. We're listening to what they say and then applying it. We're empowering ourselves. We step into our self-worth energy, and we're showing ourselves the ultimate form of self-care because we're showing that we trust our body and our innate wisdom and are telling it we know that it knows better than the mind. We know that it knows better than any other external force. And so you're showing yourself such trust and belief in yourself, and you're really empowering yourself because you no longer have to rely on outside forces. You have this divine power within yourself. And just that alone, I mean, take a second, you guys, to feel that energy. How does it feel to know that you don't have to rely on anything else? You have this ability within yourself. I mean, I think for many of us, diet culture, like Paisley giving that example of only eating at 5 to 7, I keep going back to it because it's so perfect for someone who's not, they don't think they're on a diet, they're not following diet culture behaviors. That's such a good example because it shows that there are things seeping into our minds and it's still controlling how we eat. So intuitive eating gives us that ultimate freedom. It's giving the power back to us. It's allowing us to make those decisions. I mean, who took it away from us? Why? Who says you have to eat at those times? We can take it back for ourselves. And in that moment, you are aligning with your higher self. So I want you guys to take a moment and just feel that energy, feel what it's like to be able to empower yourself, to be able to believe in yourself, to trust yourself. I feel like that's a really big one, especially for this group. So I'm going to kind of pause there, and I want you guys to really feel what it's like to trust your own body, to trust your own intuition. I think when we begin intuitive eating, it can be scary because our intuition might guide us to do things that are not what our mind thinks are good or helpful, or maybe you have a goal of you want to you have a certain goal for your body. You want to lose your digestive issues, you're trying to clear your acne, you have a certain weight goal, whatever it may be. And so your intuition might be guiding you to do something that you've previously heard was wrong. So for example, you might start to be guided to eat your dinner at 8:30. Well, but I heard that's bad for digestion, and I heard that I'm going to get acid reflux if I eat too close to bedtime, and I heard that I won't be able to sleep well because I'll be digesting. All of those things are your mind. Your body is simply going to give you the message, and then it's up to you to take the action and listen to it. So we have the choice. You don't have to listen to your intuition, but I mean, I'm just going to tell you, every time that I do, it completely works. And sometimes I am guided to eat at like 10 p.m. Sometimes I'm guided not to even eat in the morning until like noon. I mean, it's all over the place. Sometimes I'm not eating specific meals, but every time it's exactly what I need. And I'm always feeling energized and happy and nourished afterwards. And so it really is that feeling of trust. So I hope that that feels good to you guys. I hope that you guys kind of can feel that energy. And then it's multi-layered. So if you guys had any questions about what I was just saying, put them in the chat because I'm kind of moving on to a new point at this time, but I will come back to those questions. So intuitive eating for this alignment with our higher self is multi-layered, because when we eat food that we've been intuitively guided to eat, we actually connect even more with our intuition. So I wish I could like draw you guys a diagram right now, but it starts off with you building your intuitive practice with yourself. And then it goes to you start listening to your intuition. And so now you're changing your eating decisions. And as you're changing your eating decisions and following your intuitive guidance, now your intuition is actually getting stronger. And so it's like this circle. It's going around and around, because for a couple of reasons. Obviously, with practice and time, you're getting better at knowing the way your intuition communicates with you. You're getting better at knowing, what kind of typically works for you. And so you've kind of built up this routine, although I hesitate to say that because, you still have to remain flexible. Like that example of me eating the banana that day instead of the avocado, I had to break from the routine because my intuition was telling me to. So it's like following the routine and getting into it, but remaining flexible and open. So so now you're eating these foods that you're being intuitively guided to, and they're heightening your intuition, because certain foods are going to help you clean out your system and really get clear. And like I was saying before, you're removing any of those foods you were using to numb, to cope with, to self-soothe. And so you're getting back to this clear version of yourself. And so with that comes heightened intuitive abilities. So now you've been practicing, you're good at it, you have this routine, but you're remaining flexible, and your intuition is being heightened because your cells are being cleared, they're being cleaned up. You're nourishing yourself from a place of self-love. You have these pure intentions for yourself. You're empowering yourself, you trust yourself, and now your intuition is actually heightened. And so that's kind of the diagram that I wish I could show you guys and draw out. Okay, any questions about that? Because I have a couple more points on this slide until I move to the next one. Okay, so the other thing I was going to mention is when you are following your intuition, and like I just said, that you're probably going to be guided to eat foods that then in turn heighten your intuitive abilities. Usually, although this will change depending on the emotions and the energy that you're working with and whatever your body's physically going through at that time, usually you're going to be guided to eat foods that are fresh, as close to the earth as possible. So meaning very unprocessed. You're going to be called to really remove the unprocessed foods from your diet. Again, this is just typical, but you have to feel into what's right for you, because where you're starting at could be different. So from any starting point that you're at, though, you're probably going to feel the nudge to start slowly decreasing these unprocessed foods and slowly increasing more fruits, more vegetables, foods that are closer to the earth, organic foods. You're also going to be called to switch up your eating style or your eating behavior. So this is kind of like what I was talking about before, but you're probably going to be called to move into more of like a free flowing eating style or eating pattern. So instead of, okay, I wake up and I have to have breakfast at 9, and then I have to have my lunch at 12, and then I eat dinner at 5, and then I'm allowed 2 snacks, and then I go to bed. Instead of that, your intuition is probably going to be putting you all over the place. You might be having breakfast at 8 one morning, then at 10 the next. Then you might be hungry. You might wake up hungry at 7 a.m. Then, and again, this can change person to person. I know for me, it is extremely free flowing. I'm the type of person that needs a lot of freedom in all aspects of my life. So it only makes sense that it goes for the eating as well. So your eating kind of patterns and schedule is probably going to mirror the type of person you are. If you are somebody who likes some structure or a lot of structure, your intuition is probably going to guide you. Okay, every day you are pretty much eating at 7. Every day you are pretty much eating at 9, but it still may change from what you're doing right now, because what you're doing right now might not be in alignment yet. So like with Paisley's example again of only eating dinner from 5 to 7, that might not be in alignment. She might be guided to be on a schedule of eating at like 8 p.m. every night. And so she still has that structure, but she's no longer limiting herself to just that 5 to 7 window. So I hope that that makes sense for you guys as well. But that's usually the transition that I notice. And the times when I see people being called to eat foods that are more processed or that are like further away from the earth or further away from their natural state, there's usually a reason behind it as well. And there's usually an intuitive message behind it. So it might be that your body is actually calling you to eat a food that maybe doesn't feel good for a reason. So like, for example, if you haven't cut out dairy yet, like me, this was my example, and you're continuing to like eat cheese and yogurt, you might go through a week where you're craving frozen yogurt every single day and you're eating frozen yogurt 3 times a day. And now you're really, really sick and have all these terrible symptoms. And now you're like, okay, I'm not eating that anymore because clearly my body doesn't want it. So it sometimes might guide you to eat foods as a way to show you like, hey, this really doesn't feel good for you. And then it will help transition you off. Okay, I'm just gonna pause here for a second. Let me know if that made sense. Do you have any questions? I mean, we are gonna have a little bit of time to do some Q&A, but if you have any questions, you can put them here. And I will just move us along to the next slide. Okay, so this slide, this is for beginning or deepening your intuitive eating practice. So whether you are a beginner or whether you already have an intuitive eating practice that you're just looking to deepen, here are kind of the steps that I would recommend you to either put in place or adjust your current ones. So the first one is begin an intuitive practice, like I've already mentioned to you guys. So meditation, journaling, breath work, yoga. I really, really, really recommend meditation though. Whether you're doing all the others, that's great, I think, but at least putting some type of meditation into your practice, 10 minutes a day to start off with, just to get that connection going. I think the next step is having a clear intention. So even just saying the words to yourself, I set the intention to begin an intuitive eating journey. I set the intention to connect more with my intuition. I set the intention to understand the root cause of these cravings. Whatever it may be, hold that clear intention, because like I mentioned earlier in the call, where you're focusing your energy is where your energy is going to start to go. And that is going to start to be shown to you in your outside environment. So if you're focusing on that, watch, because I promise you, you are going to start to be shown the reasons for whatever question you're asking. Okay, the next step is to get curious. So again, this kind of goes with setting your intention, but now, just getting like how little kid just is like curious about things. Try to remove your judgment, try to remain neutral, and just ask yourself like, well, how would it feel if I ate like this? How would it feel if I did let myself eat at 8 p.m.? How would it feel if I did prep a few more things for lunch? Or how would it feel if I stopped having chocolate at night? Because when you take that judgment out of it and remain neutral, you find it feels totally different. I mean, just feel the energy of saying that to yourself. We are the ones that create the judgment. We are the ones that create that certain feeling associated with certain things. So if we take it off and we just say, well, how would it feel? And make it very easy and simple and just let it be innocent, it doesn't hold that much weight anymore. And then you can more easily make the change. Okay. When you're removing those judgments, the next step is to then kind of replace them with empowering thoughts. So these are thoughts that do feel good for you, because you get to choose how you think. If a thought doesn't feel good for you, change it. So if you catch yourself saying, okay, I really shouldn't be eating this, like I really shouldn't be eating this, again, it really just matters your intention and your energy. So switch it and say to yourself, I nourish myself with whatever my body needs. I nourish myself with kindness. I get to choose how I want to be nourished. Things like that that really feel good for you. Okay, and then start taking action. This one's fun. Start changing the behaviors. Kind of the steps before were all kind of mental and internal, because it is an internal change. For about 50% is this internal change, and then the next 50% is taking action and putting it into practice. So this is like removing those foods that are cravings or that you're having when you're triggered, starting to listen to your intuition about maybe switching up the timing of your eating or the portion sizes. I mean, who says you have to eat a certain portion? Eat what your body is telling you. And that's coming from a dietitian. I promise you that listening to your body is going to help you come more into alignment with this higher version of yourself. Start practicing trusting your intuition. So that kind of just goes along those same lines. I also recommend keeping a journal in the beginning because it's helpful to know, pick up on patterns and kind of see like where you're kind of being tripped up. And just be patient, disciplined, be kind to yourself, and just be courageous because it does take courage to do this. Okay, last slide really quickly, and then we are going to get to the Q&A. So this is an exclusive offer for anybody who is watching this live and all of you guys on the replay link. I am opening up a 9-week course called Intuitively Nourished. I have not launched it anywhere else yet. This is like, you guys are hearing about it pretty early because I'm not going to start launching it to the public probably until sometime next week. It's a 9-week course. There are weekly live calls like this one that are going to be a little bit more interactive. And then each week you'll also have pre-recorded module work, meditations, journal prompts, like kind of homeworks and worksheets to help guide you through the process. Whether you're a beginner at intuitive eating or you want to deepen your current practice, this will guide you through those steps. And so you guys are getting a discount. I'm going to email it to you after this class with the recording. If you want it, the course is going to be $1,200 for the 9 weeks. However, for you guys, I'm going to make it $999. So it's a little over $200 off. And yeah, you guys are going to get first access. So you're hearing about it tonight. And I don't think I'll be telling the public about it until sometime next week. And again, all the calls for that are going to be recorded as well. So if you're unable to make the live calls for those, then you would get the recording. So that is my little spiel about Intuitively Nourished. And now I'm going to open it up. I know I went pretty long, but I'm going to open it up for questions at this point. Okay, so you guys that are here, you guys can unmute yourself if you want to ask any questions, and I will try my best to answer them.
I have a very general question.
That's okay.
I'm just curious from your like RDN standpoint and your like intuitive expertise, what are your thoughts around these at-home food sensitivity tests? Because I'm so tempted to take one as part of like helping me figure out more about my intuition, but I don't know if it's kind of all BS or what.
Actually, okay, so I think my personal like Katie opinion is a little bit different than my professional RD opinion. So I'm just going to give you both. As an RD, like professionally, I would say that they're not always accurate. And so people sometimes are misled by information. And sometimes the markers that they're tracking in those can be really easily like changed. Say like you ate something like the day before you took the test, all of a sudden your blood levels of that thing are really high. So it can make you think that you're sensitive when you're not. And so it's not always the best option. And I know many dietitians kind of feel strongly not to take them. However, personally, I took one when I was having a lot of digestive issues. And I feel, in my personal opinion, again, that it was extremely helpful, like you were saying, in beginning an intuitive eating journey, because I was wanting to begin intuitive eating, but I don't think I was quite there yet in fully trusting and believing my intuition. And everybody's at a different point in their journey, right? So for where I was at, having those answers, it was already, and you might find this as well, the foods that came actually helped me trust my intuition more, because the ones that I was sensitive to were ones that I had already been noticing were irritating me. And I kind of was just looking for that confirmation. So like when I was talking to you guys about like eggs, all dairy, those came up strongly. Another thing that I am sensitive to is coffee, which came up very strongly, and other types of like some nuts and legumes that had been bothering me. And I felt so validated, and it actually helped me to trust my intuition more. And then I guess I was more easily able to change my diet because I had that validation, which I don't want you guys to have to rely on external validation, but again, I'm just honoring that everybody's at a different point in their journey, and at some point you might need that to help you kind of move forward. Does that help, Paisley? Okay, good. You're welcome. All right. Meg, you talked a little bit about curbing those cravings, like chocolate, with possibly eating more items that are close to earth, and also really listening to diving into why you might be having those cravings and recognize it. In your example, you said it was connected to your happiness. Did you try and substitute anything to achieve that happiness? Oh man. Okay. Well, for me, probably not a good example, Meg. You know this, but I mean, I was really unhappy in general in that job, and so quitting actually helped a lot. I'm trying to think if I found, you know what, I did find a substitute for a while, which was for me, instead of chocolate, I started bringing dates, which are that like dried fruit that's really, really sweet and tastes kind of like a candy. And I would cut the dates in half and put like a little bit of peanut butter and cacao nibs, like the little cacao chips that don't have any added sugar on those, and I would eat that. Another thing I would do instead would I would start bringing apple slices and cut those up with drizzle a little bit of tahini or peanut butter, or whatever you would like, almond butter, whatever. And again, I do a little bit of honey with that, so it's getting that natural sweetness. I also did the same thing with like fruit cups and berries. So I started substituting other natural sweet items. And then what really helped it though, because unfortunately for me, the food really wasn't like helping that much. It was just that I had to leave that job. But yeah, there's definitely things you can substitute that are at least if you're still craving something sweet, try something that has a natural sweetener like honey, or that's sweetened by dates or by some other type of fruit. Does that answer your question, Meg?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, good. Well, you guys, this was fun for me. I hope it was fun for you. Sorry about those technical difficulties in the beginning. You guys who are getting this recorded replay won't understand what we went through with the Wi-Fi, but thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to all of you who are watching this on the replay link. I appreciate you guys trusting me to deliver this information to you. I appreciate you guys taking the time and effort to watch this and to make whatever changes that you're making in your life from this. I hope that this helps you in some way. And yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed. Okay, well, if you don't have anything else, I am going to sign off because I think my voice is very tired. Okay, guys. Well,
Thank you.
thank you guys so much for coming. I'm so glad you guys showed up live, because this was really fun to interact with some live people. And now I'm excited that you guys provided such good examples. So when the people who watch this on the replay, they're going to get some great information that wouldn't have normally been brought up unless you guys were here. So I appreciate you guys so much. All right. Okay, I'm going to end this. Let me see. All right. Well, thank you guys so much, and have a good rest of your night. And let me figure out how to stop this. Okay. All right. Bye, guys.